What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the rebalanced cars in season 9. Quick shout out to Ubisoft for giving me early access to the game. I really appreciate it. It allows me to get this information out to you as soon as possible. All right, there's a lot that went on this season and some controversial stuff. We're not going to talk about any of that. I just want to talk about what has changed. So I'm going to deliver this in a very objective way, and then later we'll go back and do a video on what I think about all of these changes. So anyways, let's get to it. Let's go. All right, so if you're kind of wondering like what's going on with cars being buffed and nerfed in these seasons, they've been doing this since season 6. So season 6, 7, and 8, we've all seen some rebalanced cars. And I think it's one of the most important things they can do for the game because it changes the meta. Well, it's kind of supposed to. This one's pretty effective at changing the meta. They made some really interesting changes. We'll get into those in a minute. The point is, IVT is making changes to the cars to essentially make the classes more balanced. I think that's what everyone can agree. That's what we want. We want the cars to feel balanced. We don't want to be locked into one single car all the time. And I know for some that doesn't bother them, and I know for others it's really important. So with that said, I think it's important to note that they're trying their best to make these classes balanced. That's the overall goal with all of these changes. So let's get into it. Let me give you some general stats on the changes for this particular season. Well, first of all, 4 categories were touched. We had Street 1, Racing, Hyper, and Rally. We had 9 brands that saw changes, 9 cars received buffs, which means they got significantly better, and 4 cars were nerfed, which means they got worse. But it doesn't mean they got worse on accident. It was actually by design. So let's start with Street 1. The biggest news in Street 1 is that the meta is going to be shifting. They nerfed the 911 2.7. It originally had the highest top speed at 207 in Street 1. They nerfed that down to 201 in Slipstream. So it's a big change, and it makes other cars very viable because they don't have to worry about that top speed. It was the only car that had that top speed, and it was just kind of out on an island on its own, and you kind of had to pick it if you wanted to keep up. Now, they didn't just nerf the top speed on this car. They also actually buffed the lateral G. They made it handle a little bit better, and it's kind of noticeable. So it's almost like it's a little bit nicer to drive, but you just don't have that top speed on the highway sections. All right, next up in Street 1, they changed all of the RX-7s. They all saw a buff to top speed and handling. Unfortunately, the Outline Edition wasn't available during the early access, so I didn't have a chance to test it. It's a car that's exclusive to an old main stage, and the account they give us just didn't have it. Technical difficulties. I will get to it and put out a video shortly after the season launches. So with that said, all of the RX-7s performed pretty well. Actually, much better than they did before the buff, and particularly the 10th anniversary RX-7 might be really, really viable. It already was super viable in sort of like more technical routes, but now because they've buffed the top speed, it actually is going to be a very, very good car for the class. It's something that I would definitely look out for. I would test it yourself, take it out, see if you like it. This car has the handling to keep up with basically anything in the class, and now it has the top speed to do so as well. And finally, in Street 1, the Mazda MX-5 got a big buff, like literally the biggest one in the class. It's a huge increase to handling, a big increase to lateral G, better braking, better NOS power, better top speed. It literally all around, they adjusted everything on this car. Now, because of that, this car is going to skyrocket to the top of the food chain in Street 1. I would not be surprised if this is the default meta pick for most people because of how good it is. It feels almost like a Street 2 car in Street 1. It's crazy good. But to be honest with you, time will tell, because the Mark 1 GTI 1800 is actually really good and testing at almost the same rate as the MX-5 now. So those 2 cars are something to look out for in Street 1 in terms of the new meta. Now, of course, the new meta, I will be updating you guys after a few weeks. I need to get these cars out in grand races. I can't give you a grand race meta without taking them on grand races. So it's going to take me a few weeks to just, you know, play around with things and see what the community says and talk to some sweats and just really figure out the meta. But I will bring that video to you soon. All right, let's move on to the racing category. So the headline for the racing category is the T50S is nerfed. Now, it feels pretty much the same. If I'm being really honest, it feels very similar to drive. Its lateral G was weakened. It makes it a little bit slower in the corners, like it loses more speed in the corners, but it doesn't feel unfamiliar. It doesn't feel like, wow, they really killed this car. The car still feels incredibly fast. it still feels incredibly powerful, and it still gutters extremely well. So I don't really anticipate much changing for the racing category because the car is still really, really good. But I think you could see a couple of other cars sort of creep up, and we will start to test a few more to see if they can hang. And I think you're going to find a couple more usable cars. Now, the other changes in the racing category are to the Impala, the Corvette Fire Edition, the Shelby GT500, and the Charger RT Hemi. Those all saw general buffs. The most notable change was the handling. All of them really felt better to drive, and they all got a boost in their lateral G stats. Some of them saw increased acceleration as well, and the most improved of those was the Shelby GT500 with an 8-second difference between its before and after times when I tested it. The Impala Sport Sedan is actually likely to be super viable in the grand races. It already felt okay to drive, like it was sort of middle of the pack type of car, but now with the buff, it runs excellent test times. Like, it feels great to drive. It's snappy. It feels powerful. It actually feels like it can compete with most cars in the class. Maybe not the best car in the class, but definitely the rest. And now it's time for Hypercar. The big news on this one is that the Agera R and the Cento 10 both got nerfed, and those are the only two cars that got touched. The Agera's lateral G was reduced significantly from 1.7 down to 1.61. It's slower in high-speed corners, it's got slower acceleration, but they sort of tried to balance that with better, more friendly handling on low-speed corners. It doesn't slide as much. You can still get it to slide if you're careless, but for the most part, it's pretty controllable. It's not a grip machine, but it feels way more stable than it used to, particularly in and around gutters, coming out of the dirt onto the pavement, things like that, where you would normally have trouble with traction. It feels a lot more stable. Now, because of these changes, it does run a little bit of a slower time on the test courses, but the biggest thing is that its high-speed cornering ability has changed. It just doesn't have that same bite that it used to, which means more than likely we're going to see a new meta car step forward. I think the car at the top of the list right now is going to be the Pagani Imola, but we just never know. We're going to start testing other things and see what comes up. That seems to be the favorite at this moment. Now, as far as the Cento goes, the effects were sort of minimal. I don't really see why the car needed a nerf in the first place, but they reduced the lateral G from 154 down to 148, which gave it, you know, slightly less in the handling department. And they changed the top speed from 306 in slipstream down to 303 in slipstream. So it's obviously much closer to what they want to be, that like max top speed for the hypercars. Again, this really wasn't a top car, so I'm not really sure why this change was made, but you know, that might be a topic for another day. All right, finally, they made some changes to the rally department. Actually, just one change. It was one car that got adjusted, and it was the Peugeot 205, and it was nerfed. They made some significant changes to the suspension, which makes the car not even feel like the car anymore. It's much more soft now, making it kind of horrendous to drive. It's just really, really sloppy. Its lateral G went from 1.3 down to 1.24. Lateral G is not a stat that you normally like feel that much in rally, but in this case, it just feels really loose. But what's really funny about this is it still has the power and the NOS power to sort of compete at the top of the category. But with that sloppy suspension, it now introduced snap oversteer, which the car really didn't struggle that much with. Is when you're hitting a bump or a series of bumps and you make a mistake one way and the car starts drifting, if you would like to correct that, the second the front end hits the ground, the whole car flips to the other side, then you flip back to the other side, then it's just snap oversteering back left and right. This does it a lot, and it's really frustrating. So it's not really my favorite change that they've made, but it is what it is. All right, that is it. Let me know what you guys think of the changes in the comments. I will be reading all the comments, so I really appreciate that feedback. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.